Welcome back. And first of all, we're on a completely new channel. We have a new name for the podcast, and it is called The Essence of Greatness, because after all, you are tuning in to listen and be in the presence of the essence of greatness, the two of us right now, the best GMs that nobody knows about. So it's me, Joshua Julian, and my partner, Jared. Say what's up to the fans.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we've got two great topics for you here today. One of them doesn't exactly relate to Atlanta sports, but it does to an extent. But the first one is all Atlanta all the time, as we tend to be. We're talking about the Atlanta Hawks and the trade deadline. So, first of all, we need to talk about, are the Hawks actually going to make a move? So, what are you thinking?
Honestly, in my opinion, if I'm looking at this team right now, I don't see a single reason to change anything.
Absolutely.
You're rolling into the end of the back end of the season, and you're looking at the same roster basically from last year, and they're catching fire, and they look good these last 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind a move. I'm not saying we won't. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying if we don't, there's a lot of reason why we won't. There's no
Yeah.
reason to think, oh, we have to make a move. Because you look at the starting roster, you've got a solid starting roster. Bench is probably one of the best, if not the best in the league. And you can't beat that. Like, you got players
I'm with
everywhere.
you. If you had asked me this question 2 weeks ago, in all honesty, I would have said yes. We
Yes.
need to do something insane because but then again, it was a little too. It was just because of like how the team looked, with us like losing to like Portland when they were down both Game and CJ. Like it was just kind of stuff like that where I was like, what are we looking at? But we've won what, 5 in a row
5 in a row.
over actual playoff teams. It's not like we're beating
Great
like
teams.
chumps. I
Good
mean, other
teams.
than Sacramento, I mean, we beat Milwaukee, we beat Minnesota, Miami, and Charlotte. All teams that are in the playoff picture in both conferences. And this next stretch is going to be really big because I mean, the only big team that we really play is Phoenix. But then we're playing teams like the Celtics tonight. We're recording this on Friday. And then we play the Lakers, the Raptors, Mavericks, Pacers. I mean, we play a bunch of mid-tier teams. I think coming out of that stretch, going up to the Pacers game, there's an easy way for us to come out of that like 6-1, 5-2, maybe considering we'll be playing in Toronto right off of the Suns game. So,
That'll
we
be
could
tough.
that's something, especially with Toronto's length, like that could cause problems. But we beat the Celtics tonight, more than likely. I don't see how we lose to the Lakers. This team is finally starting to look like that team last year.
Exactly.
Mostly because we did get rid of the one guy that didn't want to be here. Crazy how it works, I know. So, first of all, in hindsight, can we agree the Cam Reddish trade right now is looking beautiful?
Yeah, I think the Knicks are what 2-5 in their last 7, and we're like 5-0 in our last 5.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that's
So I'm with you. I don't think we need to make a crazy move. Especially, I just read this when I was like prepping for this. Like this was 5 minutes ago that I read this. The rumored report or the report of the Sixers' last trade offer to the Hawks, or one of the trade offers to the Hawks about Ben Simmons. Did you see this? They
yes,
said that they wanted John Collins, Bogey Bogdanovich, and 3 firsts
yeah,
for
like
Simmons and Tobias.
yeah, I don't understand where they're coming from with that because it's not even like anybody necessarily wants Ben Simmons like that.
Well, I think people do want Ben Simmons because I think let's not forget that Ben Simmons can legitimately guard 1 through 5, and he is a very good passer. It's just he doesn't shoot, which is an issue.
Exactly.
But the biggest problem is the fact that the Sixers are basically overplaying their hand. I don't think the Sixers actually want to trade Simmons at the
I
deadline.
I think what they're trying to do is just hope someone says screw it and says here, take our team, our whole future, and we're gonna make a playoff push. I think that's what they're hoping.
Yeah, that probably, but again, maybe 2 weeks ago I would have at least considered it. Probably not because losing two of our top 6 players plus 3 first-round picks for the money that we would have to commit to Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris is an
Oh yeah, that's
obvious no.
huge.
But especially with the way they've been playing in the last 2 weeks, I mean, I don't see a reason to go after Ben, especially since the biggest thing that I don't see get talked about is the fit that it would have to be with Simmons and Capella. You can't move Capella till after this season's done.
Yes.
I think that would be hard to watch as a fan.
Yes.
So the other big name that I've seen in the market is Jeremy Grant, which I'm a fan of Jeremy Grant as a player. Um, but I don't think the Hawks are going to go for him either for multiple reasons. The biggest one is I just saw that he's looking for like a 4-year, $100 million extension, and he wants to be a primary option, which he's not. Bluntly, I think he does a lot of good things, and I think he can be a good number 2 or number 3, but I don't think he's a primary option. And I also think the Hawks already have their, primary guys set in place.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we've already locked up Trae Young for years. You got John Collins. You got DeAndre Hunter who's coming alive. You got your 2 top perimeter shooters and Kevin Herter and Bogey. Like
You have a center no matter what happens.
Yeah, exactly. That's why the Ben Simmons thing just makes no sense to me. Because there's no way you can have Ben Simmons on the floor if you have Capella and Onyeka as your centers. Because neither of them can shoot. Ben Simmons can't shoot. So unless you play him at the 5 and just give no minutes to Okongwu or Capella, you're going to be sitting with 2 players on the floor that can't shoot, and that's just not what you want at all.
Yeah, no, it would be very hard to watch. And the only thing it would really serve to do is either like increase the legend of Trae Young, because if Trae can make that work, then at that point,
he'd be Hall of Fame,
the best offensive force in the league, which he's already top 5 there. Speaking of which, before I go any farther, shout out to Trae Young, starter in the All-Star game, well deserved, obviously.
Forever deserved.
He got robbed last year, so he deserved it this year.
No, absolutely.
So the other big names that I've seen mentioned connected to the Hawks is Marcus Smart, Derek White, and Kenrich Williams from the Thunder. Do you have any thoughts on either of those 3 players?
I was actually at work yesterday, and I was thinking to myself, what do the Hawks actually possibly need? And I was like, got a big man. The bigs are good. You've got Onyeka, Capella, and then you've got Collins and Gallinari. It's like you don't really need a big. Small forward wise, you've got Hunter, you got Herter, you got Bogey can run the 2 and 3.
Kevin Knox
can fill some minutes when needed. I was like, well, the only position that actually needs some help is honestly the point guard, because this team has to score. Like, this team, with the way the defense has played better. But if this team starts to trickle back into the no defense toward the playoffs, we have to score. And you're going to need someone that can come off the bench and score and play defense. And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, who can do that? That's like probably a trade candidate. I'm thinking Marcus Smart. I want Marcus Smart on the Hawks if needed.
I'm leaning towards Derek White myself, because I actually think he's more gettable, because the Spurs are actually, the Celtics still believe they can contend, even though they're at 500. I think the Spurs have kind of decided, like, we're kind of trying to grow the young guys, and Derek White is just old enough to kind of be right outside their timeline. Yeah. And Derek White does all that too. I think Derek White's a better on-ball creator than Marcus Smart. He's not the defender he is, but he's still going to come in and be able to get you stopped. He really would just be a very good all-around player to have on the second unit, and would make the second unit better, because then you could kind of slide DeLon over to the 2. And you could slide Kevin up. So you might be playing slightly small-ish, but it would help DeLon, because the more you watch DeLon, right, I think the more you realize he's a quality basketball player, but he shouldn't have the ball in his hands and be the catalyst of the offense.
Correct. I like DeLon Wright. He's played pretty well recently. He's been shooting a lot better than I think anyone else would expect him to. And I don't mind him running the 1 or the 2, but it's like if we can get an upgrade, then I'm not gonna be mad at that.
Yeah, so I think the ideal way to do it would be to send them picks and maybe Lou Williams as like a salary matcher. I don't know how close that would be. I don't necessarily want to get rid of Lou, because Lou has started to look up, but he is still also a very boomer bust. If he's not scoring, he's not doing anything. Derek would kind of, and Smart Marcus as well, they contribute in so many different ways. It would be a much more positive thing for the team.
Yeah, I was thinking keeping Lou Williams would be ideal, just because of his veteran leadership. We saw he played some great times, some great minutes in the playoffs last year, because he still has that in him. But I'm just not sure what they would ask for in that with Marcus Smart. I'm not sure how much they value him. Same
Mm,
with Derek White. Like I know they value him a little bit at least. So I'm not sure what they are wanting. I'm not sure any team really wants from us. And it's one of
yeah,
those things where like I don't really want to trade anyone on this team right now, just
yeah,
because I like them all, and they're
and
all playing very well.
that's why the Kenrich Williams guy that I mentioned from the Thunder, he would probably be the most gettable just because he's
Mhm.
from the Thunder and he's a bench player. And with the Thunder, all you really need is a first round pick, and you're
And
already in the
just
door.
yeah,
So I mean, he's a stretch four who kind of he does some other things well. The only thing is, if we were to get him, I don't know how many minutes he would actually get, considering Gallo is on the team still, and I highly doubt that the Thunder would want to take back Gallo in this trade. And if they did, it'd probably involve us also having to take on like Derek Favors to make money match. I don't that we might not have to do that because I'm assuming that they're not anywhere near the salary cap
no,
considering the amount of rookies they have on their squad. But
nowhere
I
near.
mean, Williams he's a solid role player. I would normally be all for it, but because of like you were saying the depth, I mean, I don't really see the point in sending a first round pick out for your third best power forward.
Hmm.
So with all that being said, I mean, I think we're both kind of in conclusion, no reason the Hawks should make a move here.
Yeah, I think there's only like two or three players. One of them's not even. I don't think you can even trade him right now. There's only basically two players I would trade from this team. That's Cabarro because he doesn't do anything anymore.
Yeah, but he has no
Waste,
value.
yeah, and then Gorgie Dang. That's about it.
No value. So
And
basically, you're just saying guys that are going to be gone next year because they're on 1 year deals.
yes, and then if we could trade Kevin Knox, I don't think we're allowed to because he just recently got acquired.
Yeah.
Uh, but if we were allowed to, I'd trade Kevin Knox somewhere and throw him in as a young
Yeah.
piece. And then back to the Lou Williams thing, he's making 5 mil. Marcus is making 15, so that salary match would be us taking on like 10 mil.
Which we can't do because we're way too close. So we would have to send out more money. So it would
We'd
just
have
make
to
it that much
send out.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would just make it that much more complicated. You probably have to include. You'd probably have to throw Gorgie in there because I think he's on a four
Gory's only
million dollar deal,
yeah Gory's 4.
and then you'd have to find somebody else in there to make up the six. And at that point, you're losing three players for one. Is that really worth it?
Yeah, who Marcus Martin will get minutes, but it's like at what
Yeah,
cost do you need him to play? You
yeah.
know?
The biggest thing I think we can get is a backup point guard, and I mean, you can find a solid backup point guard somewhere. Like DJ Augustine is always the guy that comes up for somebody that needs a veteran backup point guard. I wouldn't hate the move. I think he's old, but we'll see. I don't think that we're not going to be heavy hitters in this trade market. Let's keep it that way.
Oh,
I think
agreed. I have
if
100%.
I think if Schlink is going to make a move, it's going to be in the off season when there's a little bit more wiggle room with money
Oh yeah,
and you get a better idea of kind of where everybody else is trying to go. Because doing it in season, it always demands that you trade more.
yeah.
Yeah, and then also offseason, if you do want to go after the big fish in Simmons, you can then move Capella at a third deal so
Yeah.
that you know.
I would definitely this offseason I'd be looking to offload Capella. I'd be looking to is DeLon on a one or is he on a 1 year deal?
DeLon, right?
Yeah.
Give me uno
I
momento.
have it up right here, but it doesn't say how many year it is. I think it's just 1 year.
I
It's
because I
a
know
one
we got
year.
him on.
It's a
So
one
1 year,
year.
he's got 1 year
Yeah,
left.
so we'll offload just this year. Yeah. So we'll offload him this year, this offseason.
Okay, yeah. So he'll be out, and then Gorgie will
Capella,
be out.
Gorgie be gone. You can offload Capella. That's 18K off your salary cap. So you're looking at clearing minimum almost about 30K, probably about 30K on the dot.
Yeah, but if you trade
After
Capella, you're
trade
probably
time.
bringing back some kind of salary.
Oh, for sure. But like, who that player is could be, you
Yeah,
know, definitely a big help. And then you can pick up.
I said, and
I don't know.
the best part is you don't necessarily have to rush Capella out the door
You don't. That's the best part.
because Onyeka still hasn't played a full season
Yeah,
or
and
had
it's
like a full off season to kind of get acclimated. So you can let him kind of grow and go in his energizer role and then see if Capella gets back to where he was last year. And if he
Mhm.
stays right around this, you can still sell that as a starting caliber center to certain teams.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. It's like you don't even have to like coming into next year. Like you don't have to change this roster again. Like you can
Mhm.
literally just leave this exact same roster and run it for another year.
Yeah.
Because you'll have
Yeah.
John, have Danilo, you'll have Bogey, you'll have Trey, you'll have Hunter, you'll have Onyeka. Like
Hmm.
you'll have all these players still on the,
And
you know.
if we really need to clear salary, I only know this because I've read it so many different times. If we do need to clear to other salary, we can. There's only $5 million of Gallo's next deal is guaranteed. So you can always use him as kind of like an anchor to where he counts as $21 million towards the trade, but then the team can only guarantee 5. So they would save money, or we could do it. I don't know necessarily how that works. I'm still working on figuring out a lot of salary cap stuff. But again, the Hawks are in a great position here.
I love it. Again, I wouldn't mind trading Gallo depending on who we get back. If we need cap space to make a big deal, I'm in.
Yeah.
Depending on who that player is, I would like us to. Honestly, I'd love for us next year to somehow just go get a superstar beside Trae Young and just watch this team blow up.
Yeah.
And just go crazy. I don't think that'll happen. I think this team enjoys having, their 1.5 superstars and just playing below the radar. I think this team enjoys that.
Absolutely, and don't sleep on it. If Hunter can continue to work on this and stay healthy, I think Hunter's a star.
Oh, I think he is too. But I'm saying as of right now, you got Trae Young and John Collins as half a star, half a superstar.
Yeah, as of now.
Yeah, so I think, and I don't think this team really wants to be a super team. I think they'd love to have a team like Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie, but it's like, this team's gelled over the years just based on their youth, and they don't want to break that up. I feel like they just want to ride the wave.
They should, because I'm telling you, if they can get hot at the right time with the way the Eastern Conference is, I mean, they can be in the 7th seed like in a week. It's incredible.
Sure.
Because everybody outside of the top 5 or 6, everybody is just clustered together around 500. So if on this stretch, if we win plenty of those games, I mean, we can be right up there in the thick of it.
For sure. There were 36 games left, something like that.
What are we at? We're 22 and 25, so that would be
47
minus 82.
35.
Yeah, 35 games. There you go.
Games. So we're tied to the Knicks right now, half game back of the Wizards, 1.5 from the Raptors, 2 games from the Celtics, 4 games from the Hornets. So I mean, you could be in 6th place in a matter of 5 games. If the Hornets go on a 5-game losing streak, you're in 7th.
Especially since you play the Raptors twice in the next week and a half.
Yeah.
So if you beat them twice, then that helps
already.
Yeah. And we play the Celtics tonight. We beat the Celtics. I mean, we're up. So again, great position for the Hawks to be in. So we're going to move on, because the real meatier topic is our second topic, which is going to be about the Hall of Fame voting and induction that we've just seen. The 2022 class has a single person elected by the baseball writers, David Ortiz. So first, I think Jared had something to say about a particular player who he thinks should already be in the Hall of Fame.
Listen, I don't want to get too deep into it because I know it really means nothing, but I think after watching his first couple of seasons, I think Ronald Acuna should definitely be eligible within the next couple of years, no matter what, just because of how great he is.
Very true. I don't see any problems with the argumentation there. Absolutely. If he keeps up this stretch. Anyway, so the one guy that got elected, David Ortiz, how do we feel?
I agree. He's legend.
Yeah, so this is where people would get into the argument about, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Is he more like a third ballot Hall of Famer? And I'm slightly biased because my father is a Red Sox fan, or was a Red Sox fan growing up and has kind of transitioned over to the Braves a little bit more. But either way, I was exposed to David Ortiz at a very young age, and he makes the Hall of Fame on his October resume alone, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that there's ever a hitter outside of maybe Reggie Jackson, who was Mr. October, who was more feared in October than David Ortiz. I mean, just looking at the amount of walk-off hits, big series that he had, the dude never really had a series where you were like, oh, he choked. He was incredible.
Greatness.
Yeah, and
essence of greatness.
Essence of greatness right there, David Ortiz. And it doesn't matter to me that he didn't, play the field, because I've seen all these stuff about how, oh, this was his career WAR compared to all these guys that aren't in. And it's like, well, he has that much WAR, and he got started late because he didn't really become a full-time player until 2003, and he was like 27. Mm-hmm. And then he also has that much WAR purely on offense. I mean, that's an incredible career when you are only doing one thing, but you do it so well that you're
Mhm.
still within shouting distance. Not to mention, I don't believe in WAR as a stat, in all honesty.
Yeah, I
When there's
mean,
like 4 different ways to calculate it, I don't see how it's accurate.
yeah, I don't get it either. I think he makes the Hall of Fame for one reason. The man in his last season stole 2 bases. He's
And
what? He was what, like 95 years old, 500 pounds, and stole 2 bases. Come on, like you can't beat that. That's like Manav trying to steal freaking second, bro. Like, come on,
uh,
that's legendary.
dear Lord, you didn't have to bring him into it.
Oh, I
It's
had
I can't. I have no place to laugh. I wasn't
because he's a
exactly paying.
Yankees fan, so I had to.
That does make sense. All right. So the other one that we really need to talk about is the three guys that fell off the ballot because it was
Ooh.
their 10th year. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and to a lesser extent, Sammy Sosa. I want to hear your feelings here because I don't think we've really talked about this. So,
Uh,
what do you think?
I think what really does it for me, for Barry Bonds at least, is the extent to which the roids were used. I think it's also hard because a lot of people argue like, oh well, pitchers did it too. Well, it's one of those things where it's like you got to be the better guy. You know, you got to be the better guy in the situation. Just because someone else might have used this doesn't mean you have to. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, Barry Bonds had an amazing career. You can't doubt that. But I just think what really killed his chances or the reasons why he didn't make it was simply because, it wasn't all natural.
Yeah. And the least favorite argument that I have or that I've ever heard from people is the whole, well, he had a Hall of Fame career before he took the roids. It's like that's true, but I can't elect Pittsburgh Pirate Barry Bonds and leave out it's one person, and I have to take into account the fact that the man put on 25 to 30 pounds of muscle at the age of
Yeah,
35,
which
and
is
went yeah, and as incredible as he was, all of his numbers are tainted because I mean you can't tell me that he hit 73 home runs without all those
yeah,
roids.
it's
You know,
impossible.
you don't tell me that he doesn't hit 762 home runs in his career without roids because he was a good home run hitter, but he wasn't a great home run hitter
Wasn't a
before
great
that.
home run hitter.
No, he was a 30 to 40, and that was what Hank Aaron was. But Hank also played 25 years. I don't think Barry was going to play 25 years
No, for sure.
because he pissed everybody off. So I don't have a problem with it for the simple fact of again he cheated the game because the whole idea of well other people were using it. I mean that's a weak argument because realistically, I think only about like 15% of players in the entire major leagues were on something around that time. If
Exactly.
you if you believe the 2003 survey, it was around like 7 or 8% tested positive, and that might have been flawed, so it was even less that were down there. Because a lot of people also point to that survey with the whole like, well, or not David Ortiz failed that test,
Hmm.
but I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have said it was potentially like kind of messed up because it tested positive for certain things that were legal that were like over the counter.
Yeah.
So I'm completely behind Barry Bonds missing it. I'm completely behind Roger Clemens missing it. Although the evidence against him is still a little bit more circumstantial
Yeah.
because Barry, they have doping calendars. He said in front of a grand jury that he was doing it, but he wasn't doing it knowingly, which is utter BS because he sought out the trainer and the trainer was a known steroid dealer. So, I mean, like,
Yeah.
kind of if that's true, then he's just an idiot.
Yeah.
And then Sosa 100% because I mean, while his peak was so high, his lows were so low,
So
and
low.
it was clearly because of roids. So
Yes.
I'm glad to see that we're in agreement here because I was slightly expecting to have to come on and have to defend why PEDs are bad.
Oh no, I 100% agree. And it's one of those things where it's like, growing up as a, I'm not gonna use this against my argument, but it's one of those things where it kind of like it got my attention fast was the whole Hank Aaron, Barry Bonds, home run, who's the home
Mm-hmm.
run king, whatever. And that's what kind of got me into the whole debate, you know,
Mm-hmm.
younger as growing up as a Braves fan was, Hank didn't have to use
Mm-hmm.
anything to do it. He just
Yeah,
did it naturally. He come out there and swung the bat and played the game.
Hank didn't have to. Griffey Jr. didn't have to from the same
Exactly.
era. I
One of the
mean,
two
Greg
doesn't have
Maddux
to.
didn't have to. I mean, there's so many people that I can point to who didn't have to use roids that were still Hall of Famers. That like the whole idea of well, they were doing it before there was testing. Yes, but it was illegal in 1991 by the Olympics Commission and NFL. If the federal government is also telling you that you can't take this stuff, I think that supersedes what Major League Baseball is saying.
Exactly.
So anyway, so the other big one that missed out that dropped off the ballot was Kurt Schilling. And I'm going to go ahead and take this because, again, my dad was a Red Sox fan, and Schilling was robbed a long time ago. Schilling should have been elected about 4 years ago. I don't see a feasible argument for why Kurt Schilling isn't a Hall of Famer. And people will invoke the characters clause because he's an a-hole off the field and
Oh yeah.
he says a lot of far right stuff that you don't agree with, and I don't agree with it either. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the dude was quite possibly one of the top 5 pitchers in October of all
Mm.
time. Not to mention he was consistently on teams that won. I mean, when he went to the Diamondbacks, they then got into the World Series. When he came to the Red Sox, that's what changed from 2003 to 2004. That was the biggest difference. Was Kurt Schilling was there to be the anchor of the rotation. And I can bring up the bloody sock game, but that's been brought up, millions of times. But then he gets into 2007, and he's at the end of his career. He doesn't have the same velocity that he used to have. I mean, the more he played, he continued to find ways to get guys out, and I don't see how he's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, didn't he go in the Diamondbacks and have like 3 20-win seasons, something like that? Something
Yeah,
like,
and
yeah.
I mean, he was the second head of the best 1-2 punch in the rotation we've seen in the last like 20ish years. Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling is an incredible duo.
Oh yeah.
It's just it's the politics of the Hall of Fame that I can't stand. When stuff happens like this, where they keep guys out who you can keep Bonds and Clemens out because they cheated the game, they used stuff that they weren't supposed to use, they artificially enhanced their performance. Schilling did none of that. Schilling went out there on 1 foot and threw 6 shutout innings in a do or die game 6 of an ALCS against a hated rival. He was consistently one of the best pitchers in the league. He doesn't have the Cy Young, so that's because again he was always like the guy behind the guy. It was like when it was Randy Johnson or it was Pedro Martinez or whatever. I mean, he's still a Hall of Famer as far as, and I hope he gets in on one of the many committees that they have because I think he deserves it. But the other problem is again like the fact that he's seeming to double down on this far right stuff.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with anything. I mean, 100% agree with basically about everything you said.
Yeah, sorry, I had to go on that rant because that's the one that like gets me the most riled up because I don't get it. I genuinely, it's like if they left John Smoltz out of the Hall of Fame
Oh
because
yeah,
Smoltz was saying some like controversial stuff. I mean, so what? I mean, the dude was one of the best pitchers in
great,
baseball for 10 years.
insane.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to play a game of yes or no, which sounds very simple. But basically, we're going to start off with the 2020, the guys that are coming back from this previous ballot. So the guys that still have eligibility, not the first timers. We'll do that differently because that's going to be a fun game.
Oh yeah.
But so for the guys that are going to be coming back to the ballot next year, I'm going to say the name, and I want you to say yes or no and give a brief explanation of why, and then I'll chime in if I feel like you're if I disagree, basically.
Okay.
So we're gonna start off. Scott Rowland.
Um, you know, with Scott, not 100%. I haven't done too much on him. Like, I haven't looked too much into him. I know he was a pretty dang good hitter. Pretty sure he stole a lot of bases, if I can remember correctly.
Give or take.
Give or take.
He had 118 in his career.
That's not bad at all.
For a third baseman who was like 6'5", yeah.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. It's like Chipper Jones stealing third base. Yeah. You don't see that very often. Obviously it's 280. Yeah, I mean he's got some great stats. I mean I never watched him really play that much. Of course, but was it 6 year on the ballot for him?
Yes. I think it's gonna be his 6th year coming up.
Shit. I'm gonna. I don't know. I'm iffy on that one. I'm gonna be iffy on that one. I'm in the middle. I'm gonna be neutral.
So I'm behind him eventually getting in, if just because I mean he's already at 63% and he's got a couple more years. I think part of it is because there aren't a lot of third basemen in the Hall of Fame,
Agreed.
which is something that I didn't know until recently. But based on how those guys played, he fits the criteria.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, if you want to, I don't want to bring it up, but he's got 70 WAR in his career, so he did have a he according to this however formula they
Stat, whatever
used.
this thing means.
Yes, whatever wins above replacement. He provided 70 wins above a replacement player. But I mean, 855 OPS, 122 OPS plus. He had 316 home runs. He was a 280 hitter. I mean, I don't see a reason. And not to mention, he was one of the best defensive third basemen of his generation. I think he's a yes, personally.
Okay.
Moving on down the list, Todd Helton.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
I
I'm behind that one.
Yeah,
Dude
the
was an
Coors
insane hitter.
Field thing is terrible. I hate the Coors Field argument so much.
Yes, but no. I see the point. But it's not like he picked to play there. I mean, yes, he signed contracts to play there. Like he could have went somewhere else. But players aren't really thinking, "Oh, let me go to a different ballpark because it's going to taint my legacy." Like no one thinks that. Like they're saying, "Hey, I like playing here. I'm going to play here."
Yeah,
So I wouldn't
but
use that argument against him.
the other thing you
But I
have to
see
take
the
into consideration is he played all those games at altitude, which I mean, it makes it harder for him to play. The ball flies, but your breath goes faster. I mean, they always talk
yeah,
about when the Hawks play in Denver, it's always like, yeah, this mile high air. I mean, you get winded fast. So the fact that he was playing so many games on that was still putting up like I think he hit. Hold on, he hit 316 for his career. He had a 953 OPS, 369 home runs. I don't see any reason how you keep him out, especially since they put Larry Walker in. I mean, I think Helton has to get in at that point.
yeah. I'm fully behind Hilton being in with no questions asked.
No bias. All right, so the next one, this is where we start to get interesting. I think there's some arguments to be had. Where are you with Billy Wagner?
Dude was a great pitcher. I'm totally behind that one as a yes. Not he's what he's been on the ballot for a while now, hasn't he?
This next 2023 is going to be his 8th year.
I give it one more year.
Yeah, it'll take a while, but the biggest thing I've seen among the Hall of Fame community is kind of they're trying to figure out how to grade relievers because it's become such a different job.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to the early 2000s or the 90s, I mean, you had like you would bring in maybe a reliever a game. Your starter was supposed to go 8 innings, but now it's like it's forbidden to allow your starter to go 3 times through the order. So he's kind of getting caught in the middle of that. But I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think he'll get in on the 10th year just because he was so dominant for a period of time as a closer. I mean, it's hard to when he was at his best. It's hard to point to guys that a lot of closers other than Mariano and maybe Hoffman who are already there who were better than Billy Wagner.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with Wagner. I mean, did what 400 plus saves, something like that. Like, pretty sure it's over
He
400.
had 422.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a fuck ton of
1,196 strikeouts in 900 innings.
So that's what's his K through 9, like a freaking.
I think it's up in the
4.
from what I've seen, it's up in like the 14s. Like he was singularly dominant.
Jesus. Yeah, I don't think you can argue with that. And he had how many walks? Like probably 400.
He had 300 exactly 300
Oh,
walks.
so he's averaging a walk every 3 innings.
Yeah,
That's
incredible.
You can't beat that. You can't beat that at all.
Yeah. All right. Moving on down. This is where it gets really fun, and I think I know where you're going to land on this. I want to hear it. Andruw Jones.
Yes, definitely. Dude hits mammo home runs. Dude was an insane hitter, great defender. I say insane hitter, but struggle at times, of course. But he was a power hitter. That's what he did.
Yep.
He jacked home runs and played great defense in my opinion. Dude had insane defense.
Yeah. It feels like hearsay, but I'm still on the fence about Andruw. In all honesty,
I'd give it another year or two, of course.
I'm saying I don't know if he should get in at all because I see the offensive stuff. I see the 434 home runs. I see the mammoth nukes. I see the 50 homer season, but he had such a steep fall off after the age of 30, and it wasn't like a Griffey Jr. fall off where it was like he kind of, it was a slower decline, but he was still kind of useful in certain areas, but it just kind of was slowly sapping his powers. After 30, it's like he did nothing. I mean, he went to LA and was hitting like low twos, and then he ended up in New York and was even worse. I mean, he was he was so good for 11 years from when he came up as a 19-year-old till about when he left Atlanta that it's hard to keep him out because he had such a high peak. But it comes down to, do you value the peak or do you value longevity?
Longevity.
And I sometimes tend to come for the longevity. I think being really good for a very long time is better than being awesome for 5 years, when it comes to like a Hall of Fame debate. But again, I think you can make an argument about the peak being so good that he deserves to get in. It's one of those things where if he gets in, I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, how did he get in? But if he doesn't get in, I'll be like, okay, I can see the argument.
Exactly.
So I'm on the fence. The other guy I'm on the fence about is the next one, Gary Sheffield.
I'm gonna agree there. Um, Definitely in the middle on that one. I see the arguments, but I also see why you wouldn't. I mean, batting wise, technically, I'm pretty sure he had better stats than Andrew Jones.
He was incredible as a hitter.
Yeah, so you
Same
can't
power with a
really.
lot more average.
Yeah, so you can't necessarily like put Andrew in for his hitting and like not put in Gary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I can definitely see Gary getting in. He's probably going into what, like year 7 or 8.
He is on his next year is going to be his 9th year, actually.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so he's
He
right on the fence. He's at 40% with 2 years to go.
I put him in there last year.
So the biggest problem I think with Gary's is he has some PED questions.
True.
He I don't know if he failed a test. I do know that he was implicated in the whole Balco thing, but I've always kind of bought his story of he didn't know because it was given to him by Barry Bonds. And I don't think, from what I've read and understood, Barry never told him like, "Hey, this cream that I'm giving you does this." He claims, because he also had arthritic knees. He was like, "I was told it was arthritis cream."
Yeah.
So and because he was only on it around that point and he didn't really have any questions about it before then, I think he's got a stronger argument than a lot of the PED guys because it's very much a, I didn't know.
Accidental.
Because
Accidental. Like didn't know.
he was only
Just
on it for I think a month or two before he found out, and then he was like, "Nah, bro, I ain't about that."
yeah.
Um, so I'm with you. I think Gary was too good of a hitter. I mean, say what you will about him as a character, he was not exactly the greatest person in the world, and he was definitely not easy to deal with. But I mean,
Ha.
500 home runs with a 292 average, was consistently one of the best hitters in the league. I don't see why you don't put him in. I mean, he wasn't a great defender, but we've established with David Ortiz, it doesn't really matter. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, the great defender is a good add-on, but you can make it as a great defender, but I don't think being a bad defender automatically disqualifies you. So the next one going down the list, I think this is going to be a quick one. Alex Rodriguez.
No, I hate Alex Rodriguez with passion.
Shouldn't get in, failed multiple PED tests, admitted to using PEDs in Texas, then failed in New York. No, never.
Yeah, never.
All right, move on. The next one is Jeff Kent.
Nah, no, not quite there. Not
I
quite.
said Jeff will not make it in because he's going into his last year and he only got 30% of the vote.
Oh yeah,
I think he deserves some consideration considering he hit
yeah.
370 home runs as a second baseman. He's one of the greatest offensive second basemen we've seen in the major leagues, and that MVP does speak for itself. But I'm with you. I think the peak was a little too short, like even shorter than Andrews, to
Yeah.
where I don't think I don't think he'll get in. I think he deserves some consideration, but I don't think he'll get in. And this is where we get into the easier ones. So Manny Ramirez.
I don't think he's quite there.
Multiple failed PED tests. That's
Yeah.
all I needed to hear. Omar Vizquel.
Couldn't tell you who that is.
He's defensive base shortstop. He played for the Indians back in '95. He had a lot of support because he is considered one of the best defensive shortstops. But then within the span of like a year and a half, he was accused of both domestic violence and sexual harassment of a bat boy.
Oh, he's done.
Yeah, so I was gonna say this is where the character clause I think does hold weight
That kicks in.
when you're beating your wife and also calling a bat boy over
Marcel Zuna, is that you?
Hey, Marcel never fondled the bat boy. All right, he
We
never
know
did
that.
that. I hope not. That I don't want to hear that. Dear Lord. So the next one is Andy Pettit.
God, I hate Yankees players with a passion. Um, Jesus.
Me too, believe me.
I'm gonna honestly not even biased. I'm gonna say no, just because I don't think he's
Yeah.
there.
Well, so he's going into his fifth year. He's only gotten 10% of the vote. So I don't, it's going to take a lot to get there. That's like a Larry Walker jump. But the biggest thing is, I think he may have some PED questions in his past. And even without the PED questions, I don't think he is because he was never, by looking at his numbers, I've looked at his numbers, he was never great.
Yeah,
You
he had
know,
good. He was good, but he was never. Oh my
he
God,
was
look at this guy.
he was always a good innings eater who was going to do what he needed to do, but it was never like your game planning for Andy Pettit. Oh,
It wasn't
game
like you're
five,
about to
and
go
oh
face.
crap,
Yeah,
Pettit's on the mound. I was more scared of Sabathia or Messina on the Yankees.
for
So
sure.
then we've got Jimmy Rollins.
No, he's a good hitter, but not that good.
Yeah, I've seen articles trying to buy like sell him, and a lot of the selling is he was the heart and soul of a World Series champion, and
Don't care.
doesn't mean you're
So
a
that means
Hall of
Freddie
Famer.
Freeman's automatically a Hall of Famer
Well,
right
Freddie
now.
Freeman was a Hall of Famer before the World Series,
Well,
in my
yeah, but
opinion.
I'm just saying, yeah.
I'm
Jock
with you.
Peterson has now became a Hall of Famer because of the NLCS,
Because of the pearls, man. Purely
because of the
because of the
Pearls,
pearls.
and because of the home run he hit that one game. But other than that,
Beautiful. So he'll stick around. I think he'll get a lot more support. I don't think he'll make it. Bobby Abreu.
no.
He was actually, I didn't realize how good he was until I was like reading up on his numbers. He was a very, very good player. I think the lack of his historical significance is going to really hurt him though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
Because I can't point to one team that he was on that was like a great team. He was with the Phillies right before Jimmy Rollins came around and they won a series. Is
Yeah.
basically what I took away. Um, Mark Burley.
Uh-uh.
I
Never. I
I
don't
think
know.
there's an argument. I think there's a
There's an
potential
argument. I
argument.
don't think he makes it.
Yeah, I don't think he will, but I think he was really good for a short period of time. That'll be the big thing is was his peak good enough to do it? And then the last one who's returning is Torrey Hunter.
Uh, not really. He's good, but like he was just
He's
not.
below the line, right below the line.
Yeah, agreed.
The Hall of Very Good.
Yeah,
All
he
right.
was. Yeah, he's the Hall of runner up.
Yes, exactly. So we've settled on Roland, Helton, Wagner, potentially Jones and Sheffield.
Correct.
Yes. So now we get to go into the upcoming first timers, and I'm just going to name the significant ones because obviously there's a ton of people. Guys like Jason Grilly,
No,
Jonathan Broxton, Adam Lind, Stephen Drew, who are going to be on the ballot, but we all know are going to get
nothing.
0% of the vote. So the big one coming in is Carlos Beltran.
I think it'll take him some time, but maybe.
So I think it's going to come down to how do they feel about his role in the sign stealing.
Yeah,
Because that was as a coach, so I don't know how much that would factor into his playing career. I think he still deserves to get in, but are voters going to really hold the fact that it seemed like he was one of the leaders? Are they going to hold that against him? I wouldn't put it past him. We've
agree.
established
They probably would do it.
they are incredibly petty. So I don't think he might not be first ballot, but I think within like 3 or 4 years, I think he'll be in.
I can see that.
What about goodness, this upcoming ballot sucks.
It really does. But
Francisco Rodriguez is the other big one.
let's just go to
K Rod.
Mr. Francisco. Nah,
No, you don't think so?
no.
Really? Why not?
I just I don't see it happening.
Okay.
So I'm envisioning him not making it.
Okay. I I think there's an argument there. He is relatively similar to Billy Wagner. He has less strikeouts, but he does have 437 saves. He had a 62 save season. He was a very good closer. I think it'll depend because we just saw Joe Nathan drop off the ballot, though. So, I think K Rod is going to be an interesting case study. I think if Billy doesn't get in, then there's absolutely no way that Francisco gets in.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I think Billy's definitely better in Francisco. So if
Yeah.
he gets in, now once Billy makes it, then you can start thinking, okay, well let's compare Francisco. But
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's kind of the end of like the qualified first timers because the other big names after them are like John Lackey,
no,
Jacoby Ellsbury,
no,
Matt Cain,
no.
Jason Worth, Mike
Jason Woods
Napoli.
is dog water.
I'm with you. I'm just saying these are all the guys that it's their first time on the ballot. I'm not saying they deserve it. I'm saying that these are all the other guys.
If
Other
Jason
than
Worth gets any votes at all, then freaking I don't know what's his face. Tyler Flowers should get votes.
all right, then I don't
Jason Worth is
see.
doo.
I'm with you there. The only one that I'm slightly biased towards is R.A. Dickey, just because
Harry Dickey,
he pitched
the
for Atlanta. He was a
knuckleballer.
knuckleballer, and I love that. But I don't think he'll get in. So yeah, I mean, other than those two, other than K Rod and Beltron, we're not looking at any new blood that's really gonna. So to me, that just says that I think Roland and Helton will get in earlier because part of the reason that a lot of them didn't get in is because there were so many like PED kind
Competitive,
of
yeah.
questionable, like, you only have 10 votes to use. So if you're one of the PED guys, you're throwing it at Sosa and you're throwing it at Clemens and Bonds and all these other guys. So you can run out of votes. But I think now Roland and Helton have a pretty easy path in.
Yeah, I can definitely see that now. There's a lot less competition. I definitely see them sliding in there for sure.
So let's have a little bit of fun and let's look ahead to 2024.
Okay.
Call a brief audible.
Cool,
let's see. Let me Google it real fast. Oh, there we go. So the guys that will be coming in that year, we've got Adrian Beltre.
Hey, I just pulled it up too.
I say it's something. So I think Adrian Beltre will get in pretty easily. And then after that, you got guys like Joe Mauer, Chase Utley, Big Sexy, one and only. Matt Holliday, Adrian Gonzalez, Jose Bautista in his bat flipping glory.
The Atlanta legend.
The Atlanta. So that's actually going to be a much more interesting case study is to 2024 first timers because outside of Beltre, there's a lot of guys that I think you could argue qualify for the Hall of Really Good as opposed to the Hall of Fame. So like watching Mauer, watching Utley, watching Holiday, Adrian Gonzalez, Jose Reyes, David Wright. I mean, those are going to be a lot of guys that you'll get some hometown support, but I think there'll be a lot of other people that are kind of like,
no, yeah.
How do we weigh this?
Exactly.
A lot of fun stuff coming up in the Hall of Fame voting because now we don't have to argue about PEDs the entire time. And
it's a lot of players we grew up watching. So.
Yes, I'll say now we can speak on it.
Exactly.
As opposed to having to listen to our fathers.
Exactly. Brandon Phillips, definitely, yes.
Absolutely.
Atlanta legend.
He's still playing independent ball.
For where?
I don't know what official team. Let me find out. But I read about him the other day. I was reading an article about a bunch of like, what's the name? Bunch of like minor league teams that got cut by Major League Baseball because they like limited the amount of teams they had and like the leagues.
The Lexington Legends, the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball.
There you go. He's playing in the Atlantic League. He also co-owns the team. So the dude was owning the team. He pulled a Michael Jordan. He literally pulled a Michael Jordan.
Well, when you're making as much money as he was making, you can own anything.
Dude was like, I'm a little bored. I'm gonna get in.
He was like,
Put me in, coach.
I'm not even good enough to make this team, but I'm just gonna pay. I'm gonna buy the team and then put myself on a roster.
Well, he does co-own them. He is not the majority owner. I do not believe.
Makes a little more sense.
Yeah, he's just part of the group. The main guy is Andy Shea. But anyway, so yes, Brandon Phillips, Hall of Famer, just for that move, pulling a Michael Jordan at the age of 40.
Agree.
in the Atlantic League. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Jared, do you have anything else you want to add before we say goodbye to our loyal viewers?
Ronald Acuna, Hall of Famer already.
Period. Ronald Acuna, Freddie Freeman, Austin Riley, all on their way to Cooperstown. You heard it here first.
Ozzy Albies too. Can't forget that one.
Ozzy, we'll see if he ever figures out how to not strike out.
No, he's just gonna be known as the strikeout or literally hit a home run.
So Dan Uggla.
No.
You just described.
Dan Struggler.
You just described
Dan Uggla can't steal bases or play defense.
That's valid, but I'm just saying, at the plate, they're very similar.
Yeah, but it's also a lot more fun watching Ozzy Albies strike out. Dan Uggla, you go up there like, dude, this man's about to swing for the fences and absolutely whiff on every single pitch.
Never forget the 30-hit game hit streak that Dan Uggla had.
Don't understand how.
Man, sometimes it's better to be hot, you know? People just get hot at the right time. All right, well, after all the rambling about Brave second baseman, we're going to go ahead and leave y'all to your wonderful day. Thank you for putting yourself in the essence of greatness, and we'll see you guys next week.